Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the StreetText Daily. Very excited to have you here today. Today's topic is one of our favorite topics, and it really got kicked off yesterday because we were watching a Tom Ferry clip. I'm sure all of you guys know who Tom Ferry is. If you don't, check him out. He is probably the #1 real estate coach right now. We're definitely the loudest and the most, everybody sort of talks about him or knows of who he is. There's lots of other great coaches. But he's definitely one that's pretty prominent out there right now. And Tom Ferry was talking about the fact that only 3% of agents do 25 deals or more.
It's crazy.
A year. Now, just think about that for a moment. That is about 2 transactions a month. And why that is so, it just hit me so hard is, well, 2 things. One is it's unbelievably low. Like if I was to guess, if somebody had asked me what percentage of agents do 25 deals or more, I would have said about 15%. Like I would have just thought it was so much higher. But so that was the first thing that hit me. And the second thing that hit me is you have no idea. I'm sure you're the same, Marcus, that when we have demo calls with agents and they want to learn about StreetText and how they generate leads, how many of them say, I'd love to do 2 a month. Like it's funny how I've heard that so many times. I'd like to do about 2 transactions a month. I'd like to do about 25 a year.
Yeah, 97% of the industry doesn't have
it's almost as if that number was somehow, they were always saying it to me and I was hearing it. And I never really clued in that, well, that's something that's interesting about 25. And the gap, the difference between 20, it is enormous. Like if you think 97% of agents do less than 25, regardless of how many years they've been in the business, and only 3% of agents do more. Like when we talk about the 80-20 rule, it's like the 97-3% rule. Like it's insane.
It's mind-boggling.
It is mind-boggling. But we're going to talk about today, we know why.
Yeah. And these guys that are doing 25 plus deals, and I've seen this for the last 5 years that I've worked together with all our most successful agents, especially in the lead generation world, because there are a few agents that primarily do 20 or more deals just from social media generation alone. They are ruthless with how they guard their time and focus on working on their business. And so they do something what we've learned from the one thing, Gary Keller, is time blocking.
That's right. But why do they time block? It
starts with your why. It starts with your big why. So, at the end of the day, let's say your goal is to do 25 transactions, to be part of that 3%. Well, how do you do 2 deals a month? Well, you're going to have to figure out what activities specifically you're going to do to get there. What are going to be the activities that when you do them are going to move you closest to that goal. And then you're going to guard that every day and you're going to work specifically on that time that's going to move you closer to your goal because you're going to measure it. How would you add to that?
No, I think that's perfect. And when I posted this yesterday, one of our top agents, Matthew Nicholas, had commented and said, I had said, why is it that so few agents hit that number? And he replied and said, it's because they don't know where their business is coming from. And when I was at the Inman conference, I was listening actually to a Tom Ferry coach, one of their coaches, Jason Santana. He was sharing the 6 different ways that agents generate business. And, it was everything from, they might be working the sphere, they might be a networker, they might be a person that understands how to advertise, or there was a couple other ones. But there was just a few categories really where they get their business. And I would say that most agents run around in all of those different areas. So, they're trying to do a networking event, they're trying to do an open house, and then they're maybe trying to dabble in lead generation because I heard that was kind of like maybe where the leads were, and then they're trying to quickly send an email to their sphere. And even though those are all places where their business comes from, you need to start recognizing where your business is coming from, as Matthew would say.
Yeah.
And then you need to double down on that area. And one of the things that we noticed right away is when we started asking, even yesterday, you were asking all the group, where do you, how many hours do you invest in StreetText a day? And we were actually blown away with how much time people were investing into the product, into the StreetText system, which is Facebook lead generation. And at first I was like, whoa, they're spending a lot of time. But all of these people have big numbers.
Yeah.
And maybe what we're really recognizing and seeing now is it's not actually the amount of time they're putting in. It's because they realize that 80% of their business is coming from that time.
Yeah.
So so they do 2 things. First of all, they put in the time, which is the first thing. And the second thing is they guard that time like crazy because they recognize where their business is coming from versus dabbling all over the place and never really seeing the result. Like probably 80% of your business is coming from one or two places. And if you're going to, and I would say if you're going to do lead generation, you could easily get 80% of your business from it.
Yeah.
But you need to put in the time and you need to guard it with your life. Like you don't have to do all day, but that there has to be a certain period of day that you legitimately, just like a basketball player, anybody that wants to be pro, like they guard a certain amount of training time that's non-negotiable. Like if they do not put in this time every single day, they're not going to see the results.
Yes.
But if you did do it, you're going to see the results, and it's because all of your business is coming from that time.
Well, let's look at it this way. For that group, and there was probably about 15 different agents that commented in, and that was either additional 3 to, I think there was upwards of 15 deals that were generated in the course of this last year. I think Donna has done something like her best year was 30 plus in a year.
No. She's done over 50 in a year.
Oh, 50
Oh,
years
yeah.
straight from StreetText.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
Then yeah, good on you. Okay, well, here's the funny part of that though. Donna talks about guarding that time she spends on her StreetText business religiously 7 days a week, 2 to 3 hours in the morning, 2 to 3 hours in the evening. Okay, so that's when someone so it's a 50 deal a year. This is twice the number of the top 3%. So that's huge. But there is somebody,
and she was new
on the lower end. I've seen half an hour to an hour generate an initial 3 deals. Now, I mean, if you look at that, let's just take 3.5 hours a week over that month. Let's put that around 15 hours a month, right? This gentleman would be generating an additional $15,000 in income just off of that activity. Where if you look at somebody in between about a 10 additional deals, that could be a difference of an additional $50K that you're netting. So I mean, it just depends on how big those goals are. But if you want to be part of that top 3%, yes, it absolutely comes down to not only, I think the important part of those, though, anyone can time block and spend time on the business, but how effective is that time you're spending and how can you track those activities? That's, for me, is probably one of the most important pieces. Is let's talk about time blocking. Let's talk about anybody who spends anywhere from 1 to 5 hours on that business. But in my mind, is how do you track that? What would you believe is the biggest indicator or takeaway there on how to track that effectively, making sure you're maximizing that time?
Well, I guess I wouldn't be so worried about tracking it personally. If it was me and I was in your shoes right now, like for our agents, which they're already doing, it seems obvious to me that there's a trend that I see. And that is that all our top agents seem to focus on only 2 areas.
Yeah.
They focus on lead generation and their referrals. So they dedicate all of their time to these 2 areas. And maybe it's the type of agents that we attract, or maybe it's the type of agents that just seem to be successful with us. But they don't try to do all of these different things. They focus on lead generation because they knew that every lead that they can turn into a client, that client can become a referral,
right,
and a repeat for them. Then once they have those those clients, those past clients, they just treat them like as they treat their leads. They treat all of it like gold because they know that those same past clients are going to send more and more referrals and more repeat business. So it seems like these are just the 2 buckets that they spend all of their time. And what they do is they obviously, like in the case of Donna, she's scheduling 2 to 3 hours out in the morning and 2 to 3 hours out in the end of the day to work on specifically her StreetText leads. So she's investing all of her time with a belief, knowing that it's going to pay off, and it has big time for her. So for me, it's just more or less like, I would say, find some time in your calendar right away, like this week, right now, today, and start carving out a 90-minute block. If that's the most, if you can only do 30 minutes, that's okay. Do 30 minutes. If you can do 1 hour, do 1 hour, and carve out a certain piece of time, and then make it a reoccurring event in your calendar. And in our case, we obviously we're so focused on lead generation that I would make it say like your StreetText leads. And I would probably do it in the morning to get it out of the way, because for a lot of you, it might be a more challenging thing to do. But once you're done, it's like going to the gym. You feel great for the rest of the day. Plus, you know that work is going to start. That's going to be where 80% of your business is going to start coming from. So if you invest that time, it's such a worthwhile time. Then I would just track your consistency around achieving that goal. For instance, at the end of the week, reward yourself if you hit the 5 hours a week of that time block time. And that's what I would do. And reward yourself because you know that you spent the time in the right activities, knowing that those activities are ultimately are going to impact your results and get you where you want to go.
Yeah.
So at the end of the week, I would look at your goal, look at the hours you put in, and congratulate yourself for moving quite a bit closer towards your goals. And it's that kind of tracking that I believe is going to move you towards where you want to be. And I wouldn't even bite up too much. Like I would just start and build some cadence. Maybe you have to block up 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour in the afternoon. Maybe you can start increasing that 1 hour to about 90 minutes. And then
I have a genius idea on that. I have a genius idea. Because for a lot of these people, they're trying to figure out what I should do with that 90 minutes. I would initially maybe spend a week immersing yourself in the material that's already available to you. There's so many great tutorials and modules that we've created and built where you can learn from the best agents exactly what they're doing, how they're doing it, and how they're actually spending their time on the business. And then you can start pulling what you believe is the most effective for you, because you're going to have huge takeaways in that. So for anybody that is, let's say you're a StreetText client right now, we do a mastermind session every Wednesday where we're pulling from the best practices of our best agents. But there's also material that you can invest in. There's the Donna Swansea course where she actually goes over how she breaks down those two, let's say 3 to 6 hours a day, but she makes it very practical on how you can break that down into your business. We have a great course that you and I just built that anybody, no matter whether they're a StreetText client or not, can get into.
Yeah, you can actually access that course below. You'll see it says, it'll say free conversion course. Click on that and you get access to it.
Yeah, and that helps you start with actually creating that why, figuring out what that goal is specifically to you, what you want to accomplish, and then how you break that down, right? So from the psychology portion of it, goal setting, to actually breaking down the process. And then if you are somebody who's never tried lead generation, we could actually give you the ultimate experience and you could do a quick test with us to see how it all works. But yes, so that would be the biggest takeaway is there is study the best if you want to become the best, right? You don't have to duplicate this and reinvent the wheel to figure out how you should spend that time blocking effectively. There's a great models out there and there's people that you can follow. And then at the end of the day, I just recommend find what you like, but make it your own, because at the end of the day, those leads, they're going to fall in love with you. And so you got to figure out something that you can do to communicate how you personally can serve them and how that translates into your passion as well, because people will see right through that. Ultimately, you want to give them the chance to actually meet you and see that you're authentic and somebody who's there that really is genuinely, most people that are really good in real estate have a huge heart to serve and get that message across.
Yeah, that's good. That's awesome. That's a great ending. So if you like this content, hit subscribe, hop over to our YouTube channel and hit subscribe if you want this on a daily basis. And otherwise, enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you tomorrow.